London. A city of ambition, wealth, and secrets. A place where lives collide in ways no one expects. This story begins not on a football pitch, not in a stadium of roaring fans, but inside a quiet, elegant restaurant in Knightsbridge. One man would walk in as a footballing golden boy. One woman would walk in as a wife and a mother. And years later, the fallout from that meeting would leave another man claiming his life had been destroyed. Trigger a multi-million-pound legal war, and eventually lead the man from a Belgravia mansion to a prison cell. This is the story of Cesc Fàbregas and Daniella Semaan. A story of love and controversy. Of accusation and silence. Of family and fracture. How did a request for an autograph turn into a decade-long feud? And did that maestro really take another man's wife, or was the marriage already a hollow shell? And as always, we tell it as truthfully as the facts allow. In 2012, a man stepped forward with a claim that shocked British tabloids. The man was Elie Taktouk, a Lebanese real estate investor. The woman was his wife of over a decade, Daniella Semaan. And the footballer accused was one of the most recognizable names in world football. At the time, Daniella and Elie had 2 children. They lived a comfortable life in London. And, according to Elie, they were trying for another baby. Then came the photos. Photos of Daniella with Cesc Fàbregas, on holiday, smiling, intimate. Photos that Elie says he saw before his marriage officially ended. To him, it felt like betrayal, not just private, but public. But what really happened? Was this a love that broke a marriage? Or a marriage already broken when love arrived? To answer that, we go back to the beginning. Before she was known as a footballer's partner, Daniella Semaan lived a life largely outside the spotlight. Born in Lebanon, Daniella later moved to London. In 1998, she married Elie Taktouk, a successful real estate investor. Together, they built a family. 2 children. A high-end London lifestyle. A marriage that, to the outside world, appeared stable. But appearances rarely tell the whole story. By the late 2000s, those close to the couple would later suggest cracks had formed, though no public statements confirmed this at the time. What is confirmed is this. By 2010, Daniella's life was about to change forever. It was 2010. Cesc Fàbregas was in London, young, wealthy, famous, and at the height of his powers. He sat in a Japanese restaurant in Knightsbridge. Daniella was dining with friends when she spotted Fàbregas at another table. Accounts differ on exactly what happened next. Some reports say she approached him to ask for an autograph for her son, Joseph. Others, including accounts favored by Taktouk's camp, suggest a more confident approach, that she'd sashayed across the room and slipped her phone number onto his table. What matters is this. They spoke. Exchanged contact details. And a connection was made. What also matters is this. Daniella was still legally married. Over the following months, the two began seeing each other, discreetly at first. Then less so. By the time the public noticed, it was already too late for privacy. When photos emerged of Daniella and Cesc together, the reaction was immediate. Elie Taktouk said he was blindsided. He claimed he had no idea his wife was involved with Fabregas until he saw it in the press. "We were trying for a baby," he told reporters. "And suddenly, I see my wife with another man." These were his claims, made publicly. Daniella, for her part, did not give interviews explaining the timeline. She did not publicly confirm an affair before separation. She did not publicly deny it in detail either. Instead, she stayed largely silent. The separation was immediate, but the legal battle was just beginning. This wasn't a quiet divorce. It was a war of attrition played out in the High Court. The centerpiece of the battle? The marital home. A Grade II-listed apartment in Belgravia. A judge ordered that the property be sold to provide Daniella with a £1.4 million settlement so she could buy a new home. But then, the plot thickened in a way that left legal experts stunned. Within 3 weeks of the flat hitting the market, A company controlled by none other than Cesc Fàbregas made an offer to buy it for £5.4 million. Elie Taktouk was livid. He claimed this was a gross injustice. His logic was simple. He was being forced to sell his home to pay his ex-wife. Her new boyfriend was the one buying the home. Therefore, Daniella would get the money and get to keep living in the house with the man who took her away. Taktouk fought all the way to the Court of Appeal, claiming the flat was worth at least £7.5 million and that the sale to Fabregas was a lowball maneuver designed to leave him broke. In Daniella Semaan's defense, her legal team portrayed her as a woman seeking a fresh start. She downplayed Fabregas' role in her financial future. In a move that raised eyebrows, she argued that Fabregas' wealth was not as significant as people believed. She claimed he wasn't a guarantor of her lifestyle and that she needed the divorce settlement to provide for herself and her children. Her defense was centered on the idea that her relationship with Cesc was separate from her legal right to a settlement from her 13-year marriage. Fabregas remained mostly silent in the press, letting his lawyers do the talking. Their stance was that the purchase of the Belgravia flat was a commercial investment. They argued that the company buying the property was a legitimate business entity and that the offer was fair market value at the time. The court agreed, with Lord Justice Jackson stating that Cesc had no legal obligation to support Daniella as they were not married at that time. While Cesc and Daniella were building a new life, welcoming their first daughter, Leah, in 2013. Elie Taktouk's life was spiraling. Taktouk claimed the divorce and the loss of his home left him financially and emotionally bankrupt. But the truth became even more complicated. In the years following the divorce, Taktouk turned to desperate measures. In 2021, the former tycoon was convicted of 9 counts of fraud and 2 of using a false instrument. He had conned property investors out of millions in a redevelopment scam in Knightsbridge. The court heard he used the stolen money to fund a lavish lifestyle he could no longer afford. Renting a Kensington property for £21,000 a month and spending tens of thousands at Harrods, all while claiming to be broke. The man who once owned a Belgravia mansion was sentenced to 7 years in prison. The judge noted that Taktouk had become an inadequate businessman who had descended into a life of crime after the trauma of his divorce. While the divorce played out, life moved forward for Daniella and Cesc. They built a home together. They had children together, 3 in total. For years, they lived as a family without marrying. Some saw this as defiance, others as patience. In 2018, after nearly a decade together, they married at Clivedon House in Berkshire. Their children attended. So did friends, teammates, and family. It was not a secret wedding. It was a public declaration. Whatever the past, they were choosing each other openly. Neither Daniella nor Cesc has ever sat down to give a detailed interview about the controversy. That silence has frustrated critics. But it has also protected their family. What Daniella has done consistently is defend herself against false rumors, especially online. What Cesc has done consistently is focus on fatherhood, football, and life beyond headlines. Silence, in this case, became their defense. Today, the headlines have faded. Cesc Fàbregas is no longer just a footballer, but a mentor, a manager, a father. Daniella Semaan is no longer just a tabloid figure, but a mother of 5. And Elie Taktouk? He remains a man whose version of events shaped the public story. Whether or not history will judge it fairly, will be known. This story has no villains carved in stone. Only people, flaws, emotions, and human. Love, they say, does not arrive neatly sometimes. And when it collides with marriage, money, and fame, the damage can last a lifetime. For some, it's a love story. For others, it's a tragedy of pride and property. But in the end, it is simply the game of life.